Hello, beautiful world, and welcome to Raven Thissel Live. Come on in, wash your hands, get a seat at the table because I have got some soul food for you. Now, around this time of year, everyone goes resolution crazy, and there's nothing wrong with setting goals, but we must have balance and build our way into sustainable changes. Have an idea of our why so that we can stay on track when we lose motivation, and also create internal and external structures to sustain our new ways of living. That's why I don't recommend resolutions, this idea that you wait until a certain time of year to make positive changes in your life. Instead, I recommend decisions. Now, the word decide means on the surface just to make a choice. But when we consider its etymology, we have D, meaning to cut in Latin, and then side, meaning to strike or to kill or to slay. Familiar, right? Like homicide, suicide, genocide. So when we decide truly to make a change, we are making a commitment to ourselves to kill every alternative each time that it arises. This is a much more powerful approach, in my opinion, to staying on track with your goals than making simply a resolution. Studies show, research shows consistently that the majority of people who set a New Year's resolution don't necessarily make it to that goal. But today, I am going to give you some tools to make sure that you are not in that number. Now, the most popular New Year decisions are around healthy eating and exercise. As a holistic health coach, I am about to give you the tea. I'm going to give you 6 foods and additives that are making you and your family sick. And if you have decided to live well, you might want to write this down because I will be using a little technical terminology. I'll be referring to some specific chemicals and additives by name. You can always go back and rewatch this if you want to collect it later. And at the end of this part of the show, I'm going to give you some insights on how you can get even more than the 6 that I'm going to share here. I hope that this segment inspires you to become curious about your staple foods, your favorite foods. And I'm thinking about calling this segment Fact Check Me, Bro. So, the first of the 6 foods that I'm going to name is farmed salmon. I know we all have heard how healthy salmon is for our bodies, but it really matters whether the salmon is farmed or whether it is wild caught. Tilapia also falls into this category of farmed seafood. Now, what you may not know is farmed seafood is fed a diet of GMO corn and grains. If you've ever been to a pond or a place where fish live naturally, you know there's no corn and no grains there. Fish are supposed to eat other fish and kelp and seaweed, and that's how they have healthy bodies. We've all heard that we are what we eat, but truly, we are whatever we eat eats. So healthy fish that are eating healthy have healthy nutrients to offer our bodies when we consume them. Unhealthy fish do just the opposite. Eating sick animals makes you sick. Now, these farmed fish and seafood are filled with omega-6 fatty acids. And according to the Mayo Clinic and many other reputable sources, consuming omega-6 fatty acids in that quantity and in that ratio with the omega-3s causes inflammation. These types of fish also have dioxins and PBCs. I won't go in too deep about what that is, but if you have your notebook, you can do the research too. And those 2 types of chemicals are linked to liver and kidney failure and even some cancers. And finally, these farmed fish, they are raised in very small enclosures, and they're often fed feces from other farms. Now, when you are shopping for fish, or even when you're out at a restaurant, you might see Atlantic salmon on the menu. Atlantic salmon, Atlantic fish is always going to be farmed. So stay away from those options. Now, if you want to opt for wild caught seafood, look for Pacific, look for Alaskan, look for sockeye salmon. Those are a few names that you can trust are likely wild caught, but make sure you take the time to read the label. Every label at the store should specify whether your seafood is coming from a farm or whether it is coming from nature. Now, the next food that I'm going to discourage if you have made the decision to live healthier in 2022 is conventional dairy. That's milk from cows, goats, sheep that come from conventional American farms. The things that I'm going to name here on this list are often illegal and banned in other countries. Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the European Union have already banned many of these food additives, but in America, the USDA and the FDA often continue approving them. So when it comes to conventional dairy, the main additives that we really want to avoid are the RBST and RBGH. Those are steroids and growth hormones. Now, if you switch to plant-based milks, then you don't have to worry about any of these things. They are hormone and steroid-free, generally speaking. But when you think about the implications of ingesting bovine hormones, hormones from a cow, hormones from a goat that are intended for a baby cow, a baby goat. And here we are as humans, a completely different species, consuming their milk. We're introducing a chemical called casomorphins into our body, and that increases fat storage, which is something that a baby cow really needs to survive, but an adult human may not. It also is very addictive, which is why so many of us love conventional cheese. In addition to these growth hormones, antibiotics and other medications really permeate milk. And what happens is the regular consumption of antibiotics gradually reduces our body's responsiveness to antibiotics when we actually need it, and also can kill the good bacteria in our gut and in our sexual organs, which makes our day-to-day life harder. And now there's an average of 21 medications found in a single glass of conventional cow's milk, according to the Journal of Agriculture, Food, and Chemistry. Even organic dairy causes mucus and inflammation in the body. But if you are a milk drinker, I highly recommend that you shoot for the organic dairy that's not going to have those harmful hormones and steroids. If you are giving milk to a child, definitely opt for the organic milk. Imagine if you gave your child steroids, regular traditional gym rat steroids, you probably would be having a conversation with CPS. And here we are in a society where we are taught and marketed to that milk does the body good and calcium from milk builds strong bones. But what we've learned is that dairy does cause mucus and inflammation in the body. And when we think about inflammation, now many of us are equipped with the knowledge that most chronic illness is caused by inflammation, and most inflammation is caused by our dietary choices. Many of us are believing that we have a genetic predisposition to a certain chronic illness or condition, when what we have gotten and inherited from our parents and ancestors is the habits, is the food habits, the exercise habits, the lifestyle habits, the stress management habits. And those are the things that make these conditions seem to be genetic when really they can be altered most of the time with some simple changes. So make sure you look at the label of everything that you're consuming, especially your meat and your dairy. You want to be sure that you're consuming high quality options. Now, speaking of looking at the label, I want to get into some food additives that are very harmful if consumed. I'm going to start with fat-free chips. Before I get into the specific additives that are harmful from the fat-free world, I want to point out that choosing to opt for fat-free foods on a regular basis may not be a good decision for your health. Your brain and your organs need healthy fats in order to function well. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, omega-3 fatty acids. Those are some of the healthiest anti-inflammatory things that we can consume that help to fight illness and chronic disease in our bodies. And so that's what makes wild-caught salmon one of the healthiest foods that you can actually consume. When we get into the foods that are processed and fat-free, a lot of times we find a chemical called olestra. Studies have shown that olestra actually tears up the lining of your gut. It causes leaky gut syndrome and increased intestinal permeability, which means holes throughout your digestive system that allow chemicals that are supposed to be in one place to leak out into other parts of your insides. I am going to leave that there in case any of you are eating. But think about that when you purchase the fat free version of something. Take a look at the label, make sure there's no olestra. The fourth chemical additive that I will warn you about is brominated vegetable oil, or BVO. BVO is actually a flame retardant, and it is found in conventional sports drinks and many bright yellow lemon lime style sodas. It causes inflammation throughout the body because it is technically not food. We know, like I said, inflammation is the cause of illnesses. Arthritis is inflammation in your joints. Ulcerative colitis is inflammation in your colon, and so on and so forth. So consuming things like BVO through your sports drinks, through your sodas, is going to be extremely harmful to your body. I do know that in recent times, Gatorade has stopped using BVO. I'm not clear on what they have replaced it with in order to maintain the same coloring and flavoring. But I'll share a little more at the end of this segment on how we can learn more about that. The fifth that I'll share on this list is BHT and BHA. I want to tell you the full scientific names, but I butcher them every single time. So feel free to Google BHT and BHA to learn those if you're interested. These additives are actually banned in the European Union, but the FDA continues to approve them in the United States. They are preservatives, and they are known to be linked to different types of cancers. They are what's known as carcinogens, which are foods, items, or even skincare products that we absorb that encourage our DNA to produce cancer cells. Now, when I look at labels as I'm grocery shopping, I see BHT and BHA in breakfast cereals. I see them in your Lucky Charms, things that we're giving to children. And when you pair that up against the fact that child cancer is on the rise, I just wonder if there might be a link there. So if you're somebody who consumes breakfast cereals, make sure you take a look at that label, look for the BHT, and nowadays there is usually an organic or chemical-free version of just about every cereal on the shelf that you can find to replace your standard conventional poisonous option. And the sixth and final one that I'm going to name is the one that I am most vigilant about, and that is artificial food coloring. Specifically, I'm referring to red 40, yellow 5 and 6, and blue 1. All of these are strongly linked to hyperactivity in children, ADHD, asthma, allergies, and even child cancers. They are found in kids' gummies. They're found in colorful, fun cereals, and a lot of other foods that are marketed to children. And so we have to ask why? Why is this happening, right? Why is our government allowing these types of harmful additives to exist in the food that we need to survive? And the answer is money. It comes down to lobbying. It comes down to where our dollars are being spent. If we continue to buy these things, companies are going to continue to make them exactly the same. So that's why I'm encouraging you not only to take in this information for yourself, but share it with the people that you love. Share it with everyone that you know. That way, when we shift our dollars, they shift their production. In the last 10 to 15 years, there has been an increase in the availability of organic and chemical-free options for a lot of foods because people are learning about the dangers of these chemicals and additives. So if you enjoy this nerdy scientific food conversation, then you're going to love my clean eating and holistic nutrition workshop on January 22nd. If you're interested in registering for the workshop, you can go to Raven Thissel Live on Facebook, the Facebook page, and register there. We are going to go over I'm going to teach you the basics of how food can impact your hormones, your gut health, your immunity. You will also get a comprehensive downloadable list of items that you want to look out for when you're grocery shopping. So that means while you're standing there in Walmart and you see something that you don't recognize on the label, you can open up your phone, take a look at that downloadable list that I'll provide for you, and make sure that you're in the clear. And also there will be Q&A. It'll be a fun time to collaborate with other people who are like-minded on the journey to decide to live in good nutrition. A quote from T. Colin Campbell: "Good nutrition creates health in all areas of our existence. All parts are interconnected." And that is really the definition of holistic health. A lot of the food additives that I named in the first segment here are things that not only cause illness in our body, but illness in our mental health. They also interrupt the alignment and the function of the chakra connections. And that's also something that I would talk about more at length in the Holistic Nutrition Workshop. Now, I want to spring right off of that into the next topic under the umbrella of deciding to thrive in 2022 and far beyond. But first, I want to check and see if we have any questions in the chat about the food additives. I'm not seeing any just yet. Let's see. And then give me some information. Alrighty, so I'm gonna jump right into the next segment. So we can't call it holistic health if we don't dive into mental wellness and the power of your mindset. But we also have to focus in and zoom in on the power of our relationships. And I'm going to combine the two. I want to talk to you about your mindset, about your relationships, and how leveling up in that space is going to really cause you to thrive and transform the way that you move, the way that you live, the way you love yourself and take care of yourself throughout the year. I think it's important to note the University of York has found that loneliness and social isolation are linked to 29% chance increase of heart attack. Loneliness also contributes to heart disease at the exact same rate as smoking. And remember, at the beginning of the show, I asked you to fact check me, bro. So please go and research this. It's fascinating to understand how much we really need healthy relationships in our lives to be well. I'm going to share with you an excerpt from a book. It's The Mountain Is You by Brianna West. And I think this launches this part of the conversation really beautifully. It says, "Your new life is going to cost you your old one. It's going to cost you your comfort zone and your sense of direction. It's going to cost you relationships and friends. It's going to cost you being liked and understood. It doesn't matter. People who are meant for you will always meet you on the other side. You're going to build a new comfort zone around the things that actually move you forward. Instead of being liked, you're going to be loved. Instead of being understood, you're going to be seen. All you're going to lose is what was built for a person you no longer are. Remaining attached to your old life is the first and final act of self-sabotage, and releasing it is what we must do to prepare to truly see real change." I thought that quote was phenomenal and really very true. I want to note that we don't owe our past versions of ourselves any allegiance, meaning at any time you can create a brand new story about who you are. All right, I do have a question here. Some questions are coming in now about the nutrition segment of the show. Do you know of any good sports drinks without all of those ingredients? Okay, I don't off top. But I will find out and I will share on the next episode of Raven Thistle Live. And even on the Raven Thistle Live Facebook page, I will place answers to questions that I don't have the answers to just yet, but I can put you in the direction of some good sports drinks. What I do in lieu of a sports drink is I drink chlorophyll, which purifies the blood and it allows more oxygen into your veins. That boosts my workout. And also electrolyte water. And that's a very light, very clean method of doing that. You can add a little bit of sea salt, lemon juice to your water, and it does something very similar to sports drinks without all of the chemicals and question marks. That's a great question. And I'm looking forward to sharing the answer on the Raven Thistle Live Facebook page. Alex Chambers says he can't imagine life without Wisconsin cheese. Okay, so I'll jump back on that. So I'm not saying that all dairy is the devil, right? There are hard cheeses are going to give you a more nutritional benefit, and they're going to help you digest. You'll be able to digest them better. They will still cause mucus, but a lot less mucus. So really what I would love for everyone to stay away from is conventional dairy, your slices of processed cheese, your shredded cheeses, your blocks of cheese. Those are all full of different chemicals, hormones, and additives. And actually, many brands of shredded cheeses also include wood chips and random, non-food items in the mix. So before you consume a particular cheese or a brand, go ahead and take a look, do a little research on that brand before you consume it. Remember, a lot of people say that they don't have time to cook, right? Don't have time to cook. I need to eat out. Don't have time to do this type of research. This is a lot of work, right? But what you're doing is you're actually giving yourself more time when you choose to invest in this way. When you choose to cook at home, when you choose to make time to go to the grocery store, to read the labels, you are creating more time on your life for yourself. So Cortisha says she needs cheese for her tacos. So I eat vegan cheese. I have brands that I like better than others. I really love the Follow Your Heart brand. It is very, very similar to your standard dairy cheese, and it's tasty. So they have a shredded option. They have slices. They even have a smoked Gouda, which is my favorite. So try a non-dairy cheese and you might be surprised. You might really like it. Okay, let's see. We've got some more comments here. 100%. We need healthy relationships, and he is learning that daily. Absolutely, Alex. So healthy relationships is where we want to put the emphasis, right? Because we all know how stress can be a huge contributor to health issues, mental health issues, as much as physical health issues. So unhealthy relationships tend to really stress us out. They don't lead us to being our truest and authentic selves. We are not free to really be ourselves in those spaces. And that's how you can tell if a relationship is healthy or not, if it brings out the best in you, if you feel really alive in that space, if someone truly understands you. And you are allowed to explore and grow in that space, that is more than likely a healthy relationship. And then there are ways to cultivate and create health in relationships. So it's not always a matter of cutting completely off the relationships that you have. Sometimes the most powerful things we can do for our own spiritual, mental growth is to invest in learning about ourselves from the relationships. So when these toxic things come up or these situations that don't bring the best out of us come up, we can ask ourselves questions like, why does this make me feel this way? Why have I been insulted by these comments? Why does this make me triggered? And then you can do some self-exploration from that point. So it's not just that good relationships always make you feel good 100% of the time. some of the most healthy relationships in my life trigger me at times. And I grow so much from those. They're healthy. I can communicate with that person. I can communicate with myself. I have a network of amazing, beautiful best friends who are just extremely supportive. We communicate very well with each other. And those relationships are really a pillar of strength in my life. So I highly recommend for those of you who consider yourself introverts or maybe lone wolves, to think about how you can make sure that you are maximizing your growth path by using relationships as a launch pad for growth. There are a lot of ways that we heal, right? We heal, we cope, we grow, and we progress. And there's a lot of encouragement to do that on your own. Which is a very good thing. It's a good thing to spend the time alone. It's a good thing to listen to yourself and understand what's going on within you. But there's a thing that happens in relationship dynamics when we're pressed up against someone else's personality, someone else's perspective, someone else's triggers and baggage that challenge us. It touches us in places that nothing else touches. And we can't know if something is tender on our body unless we touch it. So once it gets touched, observe how you respond to the pain, observe how you respond to the person, and decide, is this who I want to be? There's a lot of beauty in creating who we want to become. Learning about ourselves is just the first step. We learn about ourselves and we see the gap between where we are and where we want to be, and it scares us. It intimidates us. I want to be here, but I'm all the way over here. So when we think about being people who love ourselves, we have to consider that space between where we are and where we want to be a source of inspiration, giving ourselves a lot of grace. And in healthy, good relationships, you'll find that there's grace for you to not be perfect and make mistakes along the way. I'll talk more about that, but I want to get a feel for what the listeners are interested in hearing more about when it comes to relationships, growth, spirituality, and mental health. I do have some more comments here. Alex, some ways to get off Wisconsin cheese. So I hope that it was helpful. The other options that I named about some vegan cheese options, they are surprisingly very good. They melt very well. I would recommend it. And also, I find that when I consume cheeses that are hard cheeses from overseas, that I don't have nearly as bad of a reaction as I do from the domestic ones here in the US. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with the standards of traditional and conventional farming. Okay, so balancing, I've got a question here about how to balance healthy living with disruptions in life. Do you offer consumer food auditing services? No, I don't currently offer consumer food auditing services, but I can point you in the direction of that if that's something that you need. You can actually contact me at raven@thisselconsulting.com, and I am responsive to the emails there. So I want to get into this about disruptions of life, maintaining or developing a healthy lifestyle in spite of being busy, right? In spite of being stressed or going through maybe even a period of depression or just a dark period in your life. Those are the times where we lean on coping mechanisms like eating unhealthy foods because they bring us comfort. They release dopamine in our brains. And yeah, this is a very pertinent question. So I'm going to take it back to something that I said in the very beginning, which is about deciding, making that decision, right? Now, when you make a decision, sometimes we do have moments where we slip. We make mistakes, we slip into old things. So it's very important that we decide at the beginning of this journey that we are going to be very compassionate to ourselves, and that a mistake or falling off the wagon or making one poor choice does not disqualify us from continuing on the path that we want to stay on. So that would be the first thing I would say: making a decision, deciding what you really want, and then also deciding to be very compassionate with yourself on the journey to getting there. This is the most important thing in any part of your health journey. How you talk to and treat yourself along the way can make or break your success at reaching your goal. It's the number one thing that I tell my clients as a holistic health coach. Um, so, in getting into the practical things, right? Some of the practical ways that you can manage and continue a healthy lifestyle while you're going through a stressful situation, a divorce, moving, is to decide what types of things you're willing to compromise on. Finding healthy alternatives for the things that you already do and already eat is going to be much easier for you in the midst of a stressful situation than trying to make a complete change and a complete shift. Now, for some people, depending on what your internal voice is telling you, or what season you find yourself in, sometimes we do need that dramatic shift, and we need to really discipline ourselves and focus in on what is going on what we want to accomplish. That does happen at times. Generally speaking, I don't encourage that right off the bat. I'd say gradual is sustainable. So choose one or two things that you want to add and one or two things that you want to take away. So, an example of that might be deciding to start your day with a glass of water, adding water to your morning. Every morning, getting up, drinking water, and making a habit out of that one thing. Refrain from telling yourself that it's not enough or despising the small beginnings, right? Continue on with the one or two small additives. And then once that becomes a natural habit, add in something else. Being very gracious and taking your time. Now, there are some things that you may want to cut out right away, like all of the things that I named at the beginning of this conversation. Those are foods that I would highly recommend everyone stop consuming. But like I said, now there are plenty of organic and non-toxic alternatives to all of these foods. So replacing them in your grocery cart is going to be a powerful choice to make as well. I would also hearken back to the idea that when you make time to eat well, when you make time to meditate, when you make time to laugh with people that you enjoy, you are lengthening your life. And it needs to be treated with that type of urgency. The truth is, you don't have time not to cook. You don't have time not to exercise. You don't have time not to enjoy the people who you love in your life. These are the things that are going to make you healthy. These are the things that are going to make you feel young, and they're going to lengthen your life. Now, when it comes to just having a genuinely packed day, a genuinely packed lifestyle where your time is really full, I would begin to take a step back and ask yourself some questions. Why is my life so full of things to do? Why don't I have any time? Do I have to work multiple jobs? And if so, how can I make the same amount of money working only one job? How can I begin to take the steps to create time and space in my life? The beautiful thing about just being humans is we have the ability to truly design our lives. We can design our lives to be what we want them to be, and then take the steps to creating that. And I can talk more about that if you all desire. Alex, I hope that answers your question about getting more balanced and healthy living in spite of disruptions. If not, you're welcome to pop back in the chat, and I'll talk about that some more. Let's see here. I want to give a shout out to Nick, founder of IBM TV Network. Thank you for being here and tuning in. Kim Calhoun and a few others, thank you. And always, Mark Lee, phenomenal producer extraordinaire. And Celeste, also, thank you for your question about food safety, I believe. I see that you are the founder of a Harlem Brewing Company. That's very cool. Um, so so these are the recommendations that I would make for those of you who want to incorporate healthy eating habits into your day. But remember, we are approaching all health from a holistic perspective. So it's not just what we consume through our mouths into our bodies, it's what we consume through our eyes, what we're watching, what we consume through our ears, what we're listening to, what we consume on our skin, and what we consume in our minds, the messages that we're constantly speaking to ourselves. With the quote from from "The Mountain Is You" by Brianna West that I read, it talks about how the cost of your new life is your old one. So being willing to shed previous versions of yourself, old stories about who you are, people and circumstances that are no longer bringing you to the place that you want to go now, being willing to let go of those things, foods and habits, being willing to let go is a cost. It's something that's uncomfortable. It moves us out of the space where we feel planted and grounded. But it is the only way to accomplish and achieve anything that we set before us, anything that we set out to do. One thing that I really loved about that quote is when it says that remaining attached to your old life is the first and final act of self sabotage, and releasing it is what we must do to prepare ourselves to truly see real change. Um, all right, so I got a question from LinkedIn. Should we train children how to grow food as a part of their schooling? What are your thoughts? I absolutely think that that is a phenomenal way to create sustainability going forward for our nation and our planet. There is this disconnect between the consumer and the actual product. We go into the grocery store, we pluck things off the shelf, we get the meat, it's already been packaged up and cut. It doesn't look like a chicken, it doesn't look like beef, it doesn't look like a plant that's coming out of the ground. And so for children, it is very important for them to understand where food comes from, for them to understand a natural process that food should be going through, so that they can compare that to the unnatural processes that many food like substances that come in boxes are going through before they reach our plates. Children in the US are consuming about 3 times the calories per day as children in other countries. Not just from a weight gain perspective, but also from a chemical composition perspective. Children are being fed these additives and chemicals and artificial coloring that are contributing to ADHD, contributing to allergies, and many of the other issues that are ramping up in kids as time goes on. In the last 2 or 3 decades, we've seen those conditions skyrocket in children. And how much of a difference would it make if they had a garden, if they had a garden in the community, or a garden at school, or a garden at home, where they fell in love with having fresh produce on their plates? A lot of people struggle to get their children to eat vegetables or to eat fruit. And I'm a mom, and my kids have always, because I'm a holistic health coach, so I've always fed my kids vegetables. It's a way of life for them. But in spite of the fact that they have been eating green vegetables and salads since they could chew and had teeth, they still went through that phase of, ew, it's green, I don't want it. So what I would recommend for parents who don't necessarily have time or the means to create a garden at home, or don't necessarily have that type of resource at the school or in the community, is to take the children to the grocery store with you, take them into the produce section and let them choose. I let my kids choose which vegetables and fruit they want. And I explained to them what these things are. My daughter picked up a zucchini. She thought it was a cucumber. So we got to talk about the difference between them. And she wanted to bring it home. She wanted to try it. I bring them into the kitchen and I show them how to prepare it. We cook it together. That way they're invested in the selection process. They feel like they have a voice and a choice at the dinner table, and they get to help you in the kitchen. Kids love participating in the cooking process, and it gives them pride in the thing that they've created. So when it's on the plate in front of them, they're excited to see everybody else eat it, and they want to try it too. Even if they don't like it in the end, they've just gone through a process of learning about food. And so even if you can't necessarily have food growing as a part of your kids' education, you can educate them as you educate yourself about different healthy options and fruit and vegetables. That's a really great question. I would also say for those of us who are adults and find ourselves not liking a lot of different types of produce, I would recommend and encourage you to go on a 7-day vegan challenge. I know it sounds very counterproductive for somebody who doesn't think that they like fruit and vegetables, but what it's going to do is challenge you to find fresh food, find produce that you enjoy. It's going to challenge you to turn your normal weeknight dinner into something that is much healthier, easier on the digestive system, easier on the gut. It's going to give your internal organs a break from having to break down and process so much meat and so much dairy. And it's also going to aid in detoxifying certain organs in your body. So this is a really good thing to do. It's going to help you psychologically get used to trying new things, trying new foods, and searching. It's going to help you be very intentional about finding something that you actually like and can enjoy. And, it may be a little frustrating, but it may also help you if you have a goal of maybe losing weight. I'm not guaranteeing that you'll lose weight on a vegan diet. That's not the case all the time. But at the very least, you will experience more fruits and vegetables. There are unhealthy vegan options. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about challenging yourself to get in the kitchen and prepare vegetables for yourself throughout the day and grains. We talked a little bit about inflammation. And how it causes the majority of chronic illnesses. And I've encouraged you also to get in the kitchen, get cooking. You have to make time to do those things if you want to have more time in your life for everything else. I want to talk about anti-inflammatory foods as well. We've touched on some of the things that can cause and contribute to inflammation in the body. I think it's just as important to touch on some things that can prevent or reverse it. Omega-3 fatty acids are good anti-inflammatory foods. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, those are going to be great for reducing inflammation in the body, making sure that you drink plenty of water and stay hydrated. Your body can heal itself. It knows what to do. It's so much wiser than you are. If you just give it a rest and give it water, give it very basic things is all your body needs to recover from a lot of the inflammation that you find. I also mentioned drinking chlorophyll. This is another great way to keep down inflammation in the body. It also purifies the blood. Like fruit and vegetables, hardly eat fruit. Need a way to make fruit more interesting, or find a shop that has unique types. Finding unique fruit is a really fun thing. So I had this in 2017 or 18. I challenged myself to try an exotic fruit every week. I did not like the majority of them, to be honest, but now I know what they all taste like. And then in the years to follow, I found myself circling back to some of those fruit that I thought I didn't like at the time, but incorporating them into other dishes. I would say if you want to eat more fruit, challenge yourself to have fruit as your breakfast every day, just fruit. Fruit is actually one of the best ways to break that overnight fast. It's going to be light on your body. It's going to give you lots of energy. It's going to start you off with high anti-inflammatory micronutrients, and it's going to support your digestion for the rest of the day. So I would say start your day off with fruit and make that your challenge. Um, that's one way. I would also, oh, and also because eating fruit before you eat other foods is better for nutrient absorption. Nutrient absorption when you eat fruit after other foods or along with other foods is a little bit poorer. Um, that's another important thing is generally speaking nutrient absorption. So just because you've started eating and incorporating these healthier foods doesn't mean that your body is actually absorbing all of those nutrients right off the bat. Your body has to actually get used to those nutrients. So you have to continue, not just eating spinach one day, but eating spinach over and over and over until your body can really consume the totality of those nutrients instead of eliminating them, which is something that happens often. And that's due to our microbiome. It's referred to often as the gut. And it is a system, it's an internal ecosystem of bacteria that does really amazing things in our bodies. Your microbiome is actually made up of more cells than any other place in your body. There are more of them than there are of you. So, based on what you eat, your microbiome, this system, ecosystem of bacteria, is informed of what it needs to produce and what it needs to ask for. So, for example, if you are someone who only eats a plant based diet, your microbiome is programmed to crave plants for meals. And if you introduce into that environment meat or dairy, you're going to find poor digestion because your microbiome doesn't have the appropriate enzymes to break those foods down anymore. But if you and therefore you're not going to get the complete nutrient absorption of those items, and vice versa. If you're not eating, vegetables and fruit are the easiest thing for your body to digest, but you won't get the full nutrient absorption there if your microbiome finds these items to be foreign. So, one of the best things you can do for gut health is have a very diverse diet. Eat a lot of different types of fruit, a lot of different types of vegetables. You're going to flood your body with a lot of micronutrients, anti-inflammatory enzymes, and this is how you create a space where healthy things can happen. Now, conversely, if you are in the habit of consuming a lot of sugar or yeast, your microbiome is going to fall in love with sugar and you will have cravings very often. And what happens is your microbiome communicates with your brain. Your stomach actually controls a lot of what you're thinking. So the things that you eat have a direct impact on your mental state, your mental health. Those cravings that you get are your microbiome telling your brain, hey, we need some more sugar. When you go cold turkey, you cut certain things out of your diet, you can find that you have a crash or maybe become irritable. That is your microbiome throwing a fit because a lot of those bacteria that survive on sugar are dying. Um, and you're now informing your microbiome to do something different. And that's a space where you can create anti-inflammatory processes. Okay, let's see if we have any questions that I can answer. Any ideas for healthy non-meat protein alternatives? Sure. As somebody who eats a plant-based diet, I have lots of those. Some people who are just kind of starting out do like to go for the processed meatless options so that to help them transition. And I don't necessarily discourage that because those are going to be healthier than eating um, and ingesting animal bodies and animal hormones. Um, but aside from that, I love to consume chickpeas and beans. Now, in order for them to be a complete protein, you'll want to include a grain like rice. Together, the beans and the rice form a complete protein. Um, or quinoa. Quinoa is another great source of protein. I actually add quinoa to the majority of my salads to boost that protein intake. Also, seeds, hemp seeds are a great source of protein. Um, you can also do adding sesame seeds, seeds and things like that are good sources of protein. And a little known fact people don't consider is that vegetables have protein. Vegetables are protein sources. They're not going to be these dramatic, over the top numbers in the proteins like meat would be, but vegetables can supply you with all the proteins that you need. Broccoli is actually a great source of protein. Edamame is a great source of protein. And you can find creative ways to work these into your diet. I make hummus in the blender a lot. I found some really great hummus recipes, and I like to add that to different things. Add hummus to a salad instead of salad dressing. It makes a nice creamy sort of experience. You can add a lot of herbs and have it mimic a ranch, and you are basically drenching your salad in protein instead of drenching it in dairy. Another thing that you can do is add that same pureed bean to your wraps. You can add it to sandwiches. Then there are also like egg substitutes that are high in protein, but they are, again, processed foods. So I do recommend moderation if you're going to go the route of processed non meat alternatives. Those are some things that you can do. And they're coming out with new things all the time now for those who want to stay on a plant-based diet and be still be consuming a lot of protein. Also, I would say don't get too protein crazy. Um, the macronutrients, the protein, the carb, the fat, that is one aspect to consider, but we also really want to stay focused on our micronutrient intake as well. I saw another question come up, but it seems to have gone. Fruit each week, usually skip breakfast. Heard that fruit throughout the day decreases your cravings for sugar, and I love sugar. Yeah, so if you are a person who craves sugar all the time, then that's probably because you have yeast inside that that eats sugar, lives on sugar, and definitely your microbiome is communicating the desire for to feed that beast the sugar. And the only way to get rid of that is to just starve it. The only way to get rid of it is to starve it. And eating fruit, natural sugar from fruit is a good idea. A sweet tea addict. Oh boy. Okay, so teas. All teas are not created equally. I personally recommend teas that don't have caffeine, and usually sweet tea is made with black tea, which is a caffeinated tea. Um, so, when you're having a glass in the middle of the day, you probably had coffee in the morning, and then you're having sweet tea with your lunch, with your dinner. Um, you're consuming excess sugar and you are giving your body a lot of caffeine. So, that's just a lot of work for your liver, and it puts your body through different types of stress. So, don't recommend large amounts of sweet tea, and maybe even finding an alternative to sugar for your tea. Stevia is pretty good flavor to me, and it is an alternative to sugar that's not going to cause your body to kind of run into those same patterns of agitating your microbiome. And also honey. I add a little honey to my tea, but I drink it hot. And then, finding teas that can do double duty in your body is a great idea. I drink dandelion tea almost every day. It's a naturally purifying and detoxifying tea for your body. Um, You could do chamomile tea. There are so many other options besides just regular caffeinated black tea. If you want to do sweet tea, you can make it, you know, less less sugary. As far as using fruit, I think that's another great way to add sweetness to your tea. Maybe you could puree in the blender some strawberries, pineapple, sweeter fruits, and make it into kind of a simple syrup and add it to your tea. I like the idea of doing things like that, but it's I'm sure not everyone's cup of tea. Maybe subbing out smoothies and then adding water to the docket. One of the best things you can do for your body is replace all beverages with water. Just go all in on the water, and your body will do some really interesting things. You'll notice less fluid retention on your body. You may notice that you have a little more energy. May you be a little more regular with your digestion. In addition to other things, when I started drinking more water, I noticed my skin texture improved a lot. My hair began to grow faster. I slept better. Um, so the benefits of drinking lots of water cannot be overstated. So I usually go for water for every beverage. I know that for some people that's pretty boring, but that's how I live. Um, I want to go back to the question about children. So there was a question about getting children into the habit of understanding farming and understanding where their food comes from. All right, how do you get kids away from junk food? I know teens and younger ones are often inclined to want chips and junk. Okay. The way you phrase the question sounds like maybe these kids are already in the habit of having junk foods. The first thing I would say is to choose higher quality junk food, transition them out of eating the cereals and the gummies that have artificial coloring, and then introduce them to some things that are actually made with real fruit, organic options. And after you have kind of trained them out of the heavily junky junk foods, then you can begin to introduce some healthier substitutes. Um, like when it comes to chips that are fried in coconut oil or avocado oil are going to be much healthier than your traditional chips that are fried in hydrogenated oils. Those are going to be things that actually help your body and not hinder it. Um, so maybe try substituting their chips that they're used to with those. I would also suggest giving kids a place where they can go and choose their snack, kind of putting it in their hands, giving them a choice. I have a large basket of healthy snacks that consists of little individual bags of popcorn that I popped myself from the kernel, um, healthy chips, banana chips, plantain chips, um, juice based gummies. Um, Fruit, there's always mandarin oranges, organic apples around the house that the kids can pick up at will. So I make it very easy for them to access the healthy stuff. And the unhealthy stuff, I either don't buy. Generally speaking, you won't find a whole lot of sweets in my house because I have a sweet tooth too, which is why I know so much about how to get rid of the sugar cravings. Um, when you make the healthy choices more easily and readily available and you put that choice in their hands, you'll find them eating a lot more healthy snacks rather than them having to come and ask you every 5 seconds to get them some more gummies out of the pantry. You've created a space where they can go and fill themselves. With kids, they're always hungry no matter how many times they have eaten or how much they have eaten. You have to keep feeding them. And so it also takes a little bit of the stress of constantly being in the kitchen off of you when you make it available to them. So those are my suggestions for making healthy food more accessible and attractive to small children. I want to pivot on the topic of children, though, because we are approaching health from a holistic perspective. We're not just looking at our diets, but we're looking at our relationships, right? We're looking at the mindset. We want to consider the spiritual well being, the emotions. All of these things contribute to the child's holistic health as well. And so when we think about making sure that children are receiving the best possible environment mentally for their development into outstanding adults. I want to get a little bit into word choices, how we speak to them. How we speak to them, it really is indoctrination. We're teaching them how to speak to themselves. When we approach them with compassion, we are teaching them that compassion is normal, and therefore they should be compassionate to themselves. So when they go on these journeys later in life, and they're deciding to be healthy, they're also doing so with compassion for themselves, understanding that, yep, I messed up. I ate a whole chocolate cake yesterday, but I'm getting up and I'm back on the wagon today. I'm having a salad. I'm not beating myself up about what I did wrong yesterday. Those type of cycles and patterns follow us throughout life, and they harm our health a lot. Also, I talked about loneliness and the importance of having relationships. Another important thing that we can do for children is teach them how to be in relationship, making sure that they have time with other kids who are different from them, who think differently from them, who have maybe different life experiences than them. And this is going to cause them to ask themselves questions and find who they authentically are, find their own voice. They may try to do what Johnny's doing for a bit. They may try to do what Sarah's doing for a bit. But after a while, they'll learn that this is not necessarily for me. So giving them the freedom to operate, try things, and also giving them the compassion when they make mistakes. These are things that are going to train them to have good holistic health habits. Letting them see healthy food options around the house, letting them participate in the preparation and selection of these food items, and also giving them the option of who they spend time with, how they spend the time, and having the conversations with them to guide them when you see that they're not necessarily on the right track. So, holistic health is for adults, obviously, but we also have to consider that teaching it to children is going to make it so much easier for the next generation. It's going to normalize thinking of yourself as a whole being and addressing all of the parts of who we are. Um, and so I hope that I've given you all some good soul food today, some things to consider. If you have set resolutions, if you have made decisions, then these are some things that I think you should really consider. Um, if you are in a space where you have relationships that have failed, right? Maybe you have a romantic relationship that's ended, or you are experiencing heartbreak in the relationship space. Um, I I know that that's something that's very heavy that must be addressed. That's probably one of the most detrimental things for your health. I know Alex earlier had a question about maintaining healthy habits even when you're going through stressful and difficult times. And if that's you, then I would recommend that you head over to the Raven Thistle Live Facebook page and register for the Healing from Heartbreak workshop that's going to take place at the end of the month. Participants in that workshop are going to receive the Crown Reclaimed healing workbook in the mail. So you will need to register for that class at least a week in advance to make sure that you receive your workbook before the class. And together we will go through, I will give you tools. Recovering from heartbreak, there's an art, there's a science, right? We don't want to just cope. We want to actually heal. Coping only gets us so far. And coping mechanisms that can be healthy or they can be unhealthy, but either way, they're not healing. And so healing from those hurts is the thing that's going to open the pathway for us to truly be healthy. Um, so I had some comments here. Okay. Internal back of the house comments. So that is our show for tonight. But I invite you to come back to the next episode of Raven Thistle Live, where I will be serving up some piping hot soul food that's going to make your life even more enriched and help you thrive as the person that you are intended to authentically live as. Thank you for joining on this beautiful, almost New Year's night. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Good evening, beautiful world.
One of the things that business owners forget a lot is to prepare for their own retirement.
Hi, my name's Nick Palavita, and today I'm with a very special guest, a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement plan specialist, and president of National Pension Partners, Max Couliet. Max, tell me what you do at National Pension Partners.
Well, Nick, we help successful small businesses and professionals put together retirement plans that provide them the maximum retirement benefits and big tax deductions at the same time.
Well, how do you do this?
Well, we get on an internet conferencing system with the client. We review their goals, what they want to accomplish, and then put together strategies to help them in implementing a retirement plan that benefits them, not everybody else.
Well, that sounds really good, but how much does this cost?
Well, it's really not bad because the first consultation is free. That allows us to go through and discover whether this strategy works for that business and for you as the business owner and helping you maximize your retirement.
Well, Max, how do we get this free appointment?
It's really pretty simple, Nick. You can either go to our website below or call us at 877-252-1692, and then we can set up a time with either myself, Nick, or one of our other retirement plan specialists, another CPA or advisor in the office to go over this with you and make sure it fits for you.
Hi, my name is Lewis Haupt. I work with National Pension Partners, and I work with businesses to allow them to put the maximum away that they can for themselves and to save taxes.
Hi, I'm Brad Coyle, and I'm the brokerage manager at National Pension Partners. We're always analyzing plan fund choices in order to ensure the participant's success.
If you want more information on how we can help you and your business put more money away in a retirement plan than you ever thought possible, contact us at the website below or call us at 877-252-1692.
Oops.